Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with a meta update that involves two heroes that beg the question, are they just a fad or are they secretly OP? Are people misusing them, perhaps? These are all questions we're going to answer about two heroes that have come up in the meta ever so suddenly. Venomancer as a support and Lycan as a carry. We often have seen Lycan as an offlaner. And so first we're going to be jumping into what exactly is happening with Lycan. So right now, Lycan's win rate at the highest bracket is slightly below 50%. And I think that's super important to note because the way this hero plays is a tad strange and is also way different than how he used to play. So I think that has a large role in the fact that his win rate is still below 50%. So if I haven't sold you, I understand. But almost all of the top carry players are playing Lycan right now. I have games from Skeeter, I have games from Satanic, I have games from Ame. We're seeing him be picked up during the tournament that's going on right now by multiple different teams, having pretty decent success. And honestly, it looks kind of fun. So without further ado, I'm going to talk about the build that Lycans are going just from the ground up. So first and foremost, they are taking the Alpha Wolf facet. The Alpha Wolf facet makes it so his wolves can be leveled to level 6. At level 5, they get a root mechanic, which we'll talk about more later. And at level 6, they get a phased movement 100% evasion, attack speed, and movement speed buff on a 50-second cooldown that lasts for 8 seconds. So you can dive towers with these things. You can actually kill towers with these things. They usually just die pretty quickly to towers. So the limit potential of his wolves, now that they are invis, they have a root, and they have 100% evasion for 8 seconds, that also buffs their attack speed, and your howl affects units that you are nearby or your wolves are nearby, and at nighttime your howl is global. So we're talking about 8 minus armor from howl. We're talking about, once the talent is taken, we're talking about invis wolves that can gank you because they actually offer lockdown. And we're talking about the fact that you can't even fight back against these things because they have 100% evasion for 8 seconds. And by then, most supports are dead. And by then, most carries or cores just don't even want to bother. And they're just going to keep trying to walk away from the wolves. And they're going to consider them quite a nuisance. So as a carry, the build is straightforward. They're maxing wolves first. So you take a wolf at every point you can. So the way it works with 6 points is you can only take them once every other level. So at 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. You're taking 1 point of each of your other 2 spells, Howl and Feral Impulse. You take Feral Impulse at level 2, Howl at level 4, because that's about the time that it's nighttime and you have the global presence of it. And then you are maxing out Howl next, taking the Howl talent at level 10, and then you're taking the Wolves talent at level 15, the Feral Impulse at level 20, everything that is just buffing up you, your wolves, and your overall utility as just a right-click machine. So the build is straightforward. The thing about Lycan in the early game is he's all about his wolves, so he needs levels, and there's not really any items that drastically change the way he wants to play. He's also got decent sustain in lane. He can go jungle if his lane is all that bad, but people are just going Wand Triple Branch because he's a universal hero, gets a ton of damage from that. They fly themselves some tangos, and you're pretty much seeing a Midas rush from literally everybody playing the hero. Some people are experimenting with Null Talisman, like Ame's trying that before the Midas. I saw Satanic go for Boots a couple times before the Midas, which we're going to see in the replay. But then we're just seeing straight stat items. We are seeing Treads into Echo Saber, into either Harpoon, Manta, Lincolns, and the late game Nullifier, because at that point all the supports have bought a bajillion defensive items because they're dying to just your wolves. Okay, so we're seeing Ghost Scepters, Glimmer Capes, Force Staffs, all that kind of stuff. So the Nullifier seems absolutely essential. And other than these first like 2 or 3 stat items you're buying, everything's situational. I've seen MKB in these builds against PA. I'm saying Lincoln Sphere, against Bloodseeker because of that. Sustain like Satanic, Abyssal Blade. These are all items that are potentially cropping up, but I want to talk about what we're going to see in the first 15-20 minutes of Lycan that is so different from before, so that you guys understand exactly how to make this work, because I guarantee this hero is going to be a menace in the coming days, and you can have a lot of fun by just simply killing people with wolves. So we're going to go ahead and jump into a replay with Satanic, the new up-and-coming all-star carry player that everyone's talking about, playing Lycan in a pub. The one thing he does early is this wolf scouting. Give yourself the information. Don't feed at the runes. Absolutely essential. You can even check for wards at the mid tower if you want at nighttime. So after the rune, notice what he's going to do here. This is a really good mechanic to practice, which is to attack the enemy hero and then select your wolf that's near him, like about to be in front of him, and then just learn to body block. This is something you can practice in a private lobby. It's absolutely essential because it's effectively a continuous stun if you're chasing somebody, mainly in the early game. So we're seeing this. Gets him a lot of damage to start the lane. Lycan is a trade hero through and through. He's all about sustain and harass, right? He's not really going to kill you full to zero, but he's going to chip you down like you're seeing here. So he pairs best with supports that like to do the same. I played him today with Lich, who's more of like a kill hero because of just how strong his slows are. Felt kind of underwhelming. I'd much rather see him with the likes of Phoenix 5, Zeus 5, heroes that are just going to consistently chip them down. So we're going to see that he uses his wolves pretty much every time when the range creep gets aggroed to try to secure the CS. Playing the CS game with the wolves because they basically double his base damage if he's attacking with all of them at the same time. You might have to set some control hotkeys for this. Highly recommend that you use like one thing for select all, one thing for select the wolves, and one thing for your hero. And that should be plenty enough for you. And you can use tab to go through the wolves individually to send them across the map by themselves, but that's honestly not what you really need to do nowadays, because the wolves are a dual gank squad, and in lane you kind of see what he's doing, where maybe he micros that one wolf away to deny it, but he's not like really individually sending the wolves to scout like in the past. In the past, the wolves mid to late game were purely for information or to help you farm faster. But now, like Lycan, his wolves serve such a different purpose. You're going to see a pretty high skill kill coming out there where he's using his wolf to block. But as we fast forward, you're going to see the build come into play. He's got the boots going into the Midas. Skill build coming online. Let's go ahead and flash forward to minute 7. At this point, what happens is that if Lycan is ever allowed to pressure the tower, that's absolutely fantastic. Meaning that Pango roll was already used. Magnus is not level 6 yet. He's getting bullied off the lane. His mid lane Phoenix is ganking for him. Really high level, level 7. So they're pushing a tower. That's fantastic, right? But this isn't something you guys are always going to have in your games. And if not, you're going to do what he's about to do next without the tower being dead, which is fine. And the Midas coming out right around 7 minutes if you're having a good start is perfect, because you're going to Midas a creep. You're going to get the neutral item, as you see here. Really well timed. I see people going for the stat items generally just because you're a universal hero. Any of the stat items seem to be the go-tos. Important to note that you can't try to pull or draw aggro with your wolves at any point, and you also can't pull later on once the wolves are level 3 because they're invisible and their fade time is really short. So the utility of wolves is basically to hit creeps and to hit heroes. That's it. So notice how he likes to play the sides of the fight like this, and I feel like every time I watch replays of Lycan, there's just these random ults where you're like, this looks good, I use my ult, and then you end up just walking away and jungling. The main thing when your ulti's on cooldown is just don't get caught like trying to farm lanes, because people know your ulti's on cooldown, and you're pretty easily gankable, all things considered, when you don't have your ultimate. So his wolves up until level 9 are purely going to be his farming buddies. He definitely has like this clear timing window right at level 9 because of the fact that your wolves get the root at level 5. That's really important to capitalize on. And if your teammates are not allowing you to do so, that's fine too. Just remember that your wolves are effectively you being the carry contributing to fights once you get to level 9. But until then, you're playing normal carry gameplay. You're just farming creeps. He's even trying to be aggressive because he sees a fight going on mid, and he knows his mid Phoenix has boots of travel. So he's actually setting up a kill here by allowing his Phoenix to boots of travel onto the wolves from out of vision. That stuff you're probably not going to see in your guys' games, but just keep in mind that this potential of being able to contribute a lot of damage is something that Lycan can do even without his ultimate. But here we're going to see level 9. And right when he gets the timing, this is really important. Right when he gets the timing, we're going to see him send his wolves to mid. And what the Lycans are doing is you just stick your hero on jungle creeps, okay? Your hero, it's amazing. You can effectively farm while potentially contributing to the game, right? So we're going to then see a fight where his team gets completely wiped. And, okay, you'd be like, well, I guess I sent my wolves here for nothing. Wrong, because these are effectively a hero in terms of how strong they are, but obviously you're not risking anything by sending them in. That looks like a juicy support warlock right there. Boom. And all it took was one ability casted from his teammate, and that guy's dead. Now, he's sending his wolves onto the Magnus, and the root plus the immense amount of damage plus one hero. Boom, dead, right? So this is what the wolves do. They just set things up for you. Obviously, once they had the momentum, he brought his hero over and he finished the jungle camp. But your wolves are what your hero's all about. And notice how he's just sending them around the map now. Now that he's level 9 with the root from the wolves, his wolves are like the best +1 in the game. He just forced 2 supports to go TP and defend this PA. And all it took was his wolves. Like, yes, your teammates are going to have to help you with this. But this is very natural. His teammates are kind of just playing the game, right? So the fact that you're a +1 to like every kill on the map without actually using your real hero is what makes Lycan so strong right now. So we're seeing him like set up again. He's like pinging Phoenix with bots. What I learned watching this replay is if you guys have a Lycan on your team, pick up bots mid hero that can utilize the wolf root and do the damage. And just see how he's literally sticking his hero on a jungle camp and then sending his wolves in. The next part of the build that's most essential is that you get the shard right at 15 minutes, or at least as close to it as possible. Because the shard, they are level 6 wolves from the shard, and then they end up pushing lanes for you and giving you extra farm. And look at what his wolves are doing. Like, this is actually absurd. They're invisible, and they're forcing the enemy team to deal with them, and they're setting up ganks. They end up getting a free kill on the Tiny. The key about Lycan and when to pick him, okay? So I wanted to show you guys the early game because the rest of the game is kind of just normal carry gameplay where you have items, you're a right clicker, you run into fights, only thing being a nullifier. But the beauty of this hero is you have a shard, it's going to push lanes for you, and you have this mid-game presence where you're literally just killing people for your team while CSing. So what I noticed when I played Lycan once today was that first off, we didn't have any global hero like this Phoenix is playing. That seems to make this way better. But I also picked it against melee supports like Pudge, actually, who can just hook the wolves, and it was really shitty. It seems the best, absolute best, when the enemy has 2 ranged supports that are position-based and can't really defend themselves. So Warlock, Batrider are perfect examples. Heroes like Zeus and Lion would also be great examples. Venomancer, a hero that we're going to talk about in a bit, is another example. Heroes that just can't really defend themselves from these wolves that are specifically, or at least ideally, ranged are definitely the time to be picking Lycan. So I'm going to be looking to pick Lycan in my games when I'm seeing ranged supports on the enemy team that I can go send my wolves. I'm thinking, I'm watching this replay and saying, oh yeah, Warlock, Batrider, even Magnus to some extent are really mobility or position-based heroes that are really annoyed by this. And I also want heroes on my team with lockdown/burst. One or the other. So with his team, he's got the Tiny Lion. It just feels like it's so easy for the Phoenix, the Tiny, to capitalize on his wolves. My team had like a Dawnbreaker on it, which not the case, right? Dawnbreaker is a hero that wants somebody else to set them up in terms of initiation. And Lycan is another hero that he gives you the vision and he lets you catch up, but you need the person that jumps. You know, that's what you need on your team. So keep that in mind with Lycan. If you have any initiators on your team, you're good to go. I know I feel like I'm saying a lot of ifs or what conditions you want to be picking Lycan, but these are also just pretty normal things. One of your supports having a stun, one of your cores having burst damage, ideally one of them having a stun, and you're good to go. Ranged squishy supports, these are the perfect games. And you don't even have to play Lycan in perfect games. He's got a decent win rate with people like me playing him and having no idea what we're doing. So that's what makes Lycan so good right now. And this continues in every game I've seen. It's almost completely unavoidable. The key is that you keep your farm up while you're doing this. Get the shard and pay attention to where the wolves are spawning, because those are lanes that you don't want to go to yourself, because I did that and wasted a lot of time. So these are the little tips I had from my early mistakes of playing Lycan. Pay attention to where your shards will spawn. Make sure your hero is always farming efficiently. Look to turn auto attack on in the mid game to make sure your hero's never AFK while you're mainly microing your wolves, because your wolves are basically the hero for like 10 minutes. And late game, they still offer a lot for you, but you'll be running around with them. So that's Lycan. So next, we're going to talk about Venomancer. So the thing about Venomancer is I actually think it's his Plague Carrier facet that makes him absolutely broken. The one that allows you to place wards on yourself or your teammates. But his win rate with the other facet is really high, while his win rate at the highest level with the Plague Carrier facet is 45%. Now, before you guys leave the video, before you say, screw you, BSJ, don't you dare encourage people to be playing Venomancer like this in my pubs. Here's what's happening, guys. Venomancer, just because you can put Plague Words on yourself and you are one of the fastest farmers in the game because of this, you are not supposed to jungle level 1. If you jungle in 2025 and the other team is not complete garbanzo beans, whatever core you are leaving to their own devices is going to get absolutely demolished, and the enemy core in that lane is going to free farm. And the beauty of Venomancer with the Plague Carrier facet is that he does farm really fast, and his kit is naturally very useful in team fights. He's got a really nice AoE ult. He's got a lot of damage over time. And any hero in the support role with items and supplies vision, because wards can also be placed on the ground, is useful. I firmly believe, I can't prove this, guys, but I firmly believe that Venomancer innately is a useful hero, and his win rate is only good on the other facet because people aren't trying to jungle with it. Okay, like if people took the Plague Carrier facet and just stopped jungling, I would state with confidence something that I could never prove, because people are going to pick Pudge support. They're going to pick jungling supports because they just don't actually want to play support. They're going to give it a bad name, but I promise you it's OP. And I'm going to show you a replay of Crit, the one and only, doing it the way that I envision it being played, because I've tried it a couple times myself, but obviously he plays it to perfection. Let's talk about exactly a similar story to Lycan. We're going to talk about the early game of Venomancer, and, later on you turn into a normal support. But this is how you need to play Venomancer and what makes him so strong right now. And you also get to roleplay playing a core. So let's jump into this game. I personally think Venomancer is far better as a 5 than he is as a 4 support, because of the fact that he has a lot of slows and you want to capitalize on the chase potential of the safe lane. Oftentimes when you're in the off lane, they're just kind of sitting underneath their tower. So I really like playing him more so as a 5, and that's exactly what Crit's going to do here. Pay attention to his item build. He's got tangos, which he needs a lot of sustain, and you're going to see that based on how he's going to play. And he also has that one clarity, and he's going to be flying himself a bunch of clarities. But it's also important to buy these couple branches and the Fairy Fire, these little extra damage items, because Venomancer has a nice attack animation. It's going to be useful for harassing in lane, and it's also going to be useful for when you're jungling and when you're farming. So don't forget to, these little stats will add up a lot, because your base damage is absolutely abysmal on Venomancer. So what exactly am I trying to sell here? So depending on what carry you have, if he had a really strong Slark level 1 kind of thing with Essence Shift, maybe he goes for Gale. But what we're going to see him do is just take his Plague Wards and look to bully the offlaner. Yeah, he's against Nyx Assassin 4, who's not really going to help too much. But we're going to see him go for a cool little, bully play here. Do it, Crit. I know you're going to do it. Thank you. And he's just going to run at the enemy, looking to make sure he doesn't draw creep aggro. And once he gets level 2, look at this. This is pretty crazy, right? This amount of damage. The enemy's dragging and all that, but you could also just be doing this one-on-one against the enemy 4, just depending on the lane that you're in. So he's going to be 1v2ing here. Pretty ballsy. He's going to inevitably overstay his welcome. I didn't think he was going to die there either. He did have Fairy Fire. But this is one of those situations where we talked about Lycan being a harass trading hero. While Venomancer has decent kill potential, what I feel what makes Venomancer so broken is that it takes so many resources just to deal with him. So this was 1v2, and look at this guy's mana and health, and look at this guy's mana and health. I don't think Bloodseekers hit a single enemy hero, okay? So it may look like a feed from crit, and, you know, we're never trying to validate just relentlessly dying as support, but Venomancer is one of those heroes where you do get to think to yourself, hashtag worth, when you die like this a lot. Because you're forcing the opponent to use so many resources to deal with you, and this applies not only in the laning stage, but also later on as well, that it's not even worth it to them sometimes, especially when you're a support early on in the game and you haven't gotten items yet. But this is the ticket, right? He's kind of secured Bloodseeker a lane. Like, let's pull up the last hits, right? Bloodseeker's 13-4, Beastmaster's 7-3. He's given him an advantage. And this is the part that people are skipping. This first 3 minutes where you play the fucking lane, guys. Okay? But guess what? You've given your carry an advantage. You have the lane pushed out, which is not ideal. He's going to pull the camp, and then he's going to turn into the Venomancer we all know and hate. And he's going to go hit some jungle camps, right? So notice how he has the Bassi. He's flying himself a bunch of clarities, and he's going to clear like one camp, and then he goes back to lane. This is important. He goes back to lane, looks to set up a kill. Look at this. Like, that's just a free, like, other than a Gale mana cost, he's just got like 150 damage on him. He's yeah, he's trading and all that, but this is what Venomancer's supposed to do, is force these resource trades, go back to lane, make it so his carry's not effectively playing 1v2, and back to jungle. This is where we get to roleplay playing a core, because you are going to farm pretty fast. We don't need to be level frickin' 10 at 10 minutes like you see some of these jungle Venomancers at the expense of their own cores. Notice how, oh, there's a fight going on mid. He cleared that one creep wave, or that creep camp, excuse me. Boom. He's going to go help there. Oh, he sees what's going on bottom. He's now going to go stack the small camp and farm the big camp. How many supports at level 3 can farm a big camp? Okay. So then he's going to go back to lane. Yeah, he's not got like a super high amount of mana, but this constant resource trade that he's creating by just flying himself regen, clarities, tangos, and then going back to this medium camp who's clearly his best friend. Look at his skill build. We talked about, you know, level 2, he went Gale for the kill thread, and now he's just going to be maxing out his wards for farm. And now he's just moving towards mid, because why not? Oh, because there's a frickin' wisdom rune that he was going to help with. Now, where is he going to go now? Well, just to the nearby jungle camp. There's no such thing as being inefficient with Venomancer. It kind of sucks that he's low mana, but he's got his mana boots coming. And he's a level 4 support farming ancients right now. Yeah, now keep in mind, if you have an ancient farming offlaner, this may not be ideal to go there. But you can see that he just cleared ancients at level 4 and got himself half a level by virtue of farming those ancients. So that's really nice. And that's something that, notice how he trades himself for cores or just resources in general. Not a big deal. He's got the arcane ring. He's got the mana boots. Puts wards on himself before he leaves the base. And now he's back to the jungle, right? And the thing about this is you clear jungle so fast that you can just go walk to lanes. Nope, nothing to do in the lanes. I'm going to go farm this other ancient camp as a level 5 support, who's now level 6 at 9 minutes, virtually taking no experience from his carry. And his carry is also top in the charts. Like, yeah, it's Lifestealers ahead, but you see what I mean. And then he's going to apply some pressure on the mid lane, right? He's always participating in the game, setting up kills for his team. And even if he's going to go down, this is the story of Venomancer, guys. This is the story of Venomancer. Because at the end of the day, you have AoE, damage over time. You're actually pretty survivable once you get some of these items. And what we're seeing all of the support Venomancers go for is just that early Solar Crest, because of how much utility and survivability it offers you. And also, you are your items later on in the game as Venomancer. I've seen some people go for like aura items, but he has a Darkseer offlane, so that's definitely not what he wants to go for here. The opponent also has a lot of single target with the Nyx and the Beastmaster, even Lifestealer being single target. And notice how he's actually farming camps, but then he moves to lanes nearby and is pressuring towers and everything, right? Like, he's not just saying, oh, I'm a Venomancer, farm down here and be level 11. He's actually playing the damn game and abusing the fact that this hero has piercing damage wards, and he's got 8 of them on him right now. These things do 38 damage per hit, and they do piercing, which does bonus damage to creeps. So he's doing like 55 damage per ward on him with every hit. So when he's got those 8 wards on him, he's hitting for 450, you know, 450 damage. That's insane, right? And he's not even having to stay still to do it. So notice how he's constantly involved in the game. Anytime there's a fight nearby, he's happy to show up. His ulti's a really nice kill tool when he has it. But even then, like, boom, now he's back to jungling. After the Solar Crest, I've seen Glimmer Capes, Force Staffs, I've seen Lotus Orbs. Generally items that you can use on yourself and your teammates to keep you alive. You can go a bit more like offensive if you want to go drums. But yeah, just these general buff up items, because I mentioned Venomancer is a innately useful hero, but what it feels like is none of the items in the game, like his abilities kind of play themselves. His ultimate's a super long cast range. His wards just need to be on him, right? And then his second ability only does something if his wards are hitting you or he's hitting you. And his Gale is like a 1-point wonder spell. Like, it's just a really good slow at level 1, and you're not even leveling it from then point on. The point that I'm trying to make is that Venomancer's items don't need to synergize with his abilities, right? They're just enabling you to be a bit tankier, buff yourself up. If the enemy's going to all in and kill you, they're going to have to pay a bigger price to do so. And this is like showing you how much impact you can have on support, because even with all this, he's still losing by 1k. And they do end up winning this game. That's really important to note. But just look at how he's allowed to walk around the map and just hit some neutral camps casually. And that's the big part about Venomancer support that I think is absolutely busted, because he's not ruining the game for any of his cores by jungling level 1, but he's also just a hero that can do its job in the game, warding, ganking, taking towers and pushing, and weave these camps in between. Most notably, he's the only support I can think of that can farm Ancients, which is pretty nuts. And even if you can't farm Ancients, you could maybe look to play around these 2 camps and play around mid instead that way, if your mid's more of an Ancient farmer. Like, there's options. Your hero can farm literally anywhere on the map, and the beauty of the map right now, ever since it was expanded, is that there's space for everybody. And as long as you're not jungling from level 1 and sitting down here farming and buying a Midas, and that's, I guarantee you, why Venomancer's win rate is so low with this facet. Take inspiration from Crit. Please believe me and try this out, because I just think he's misunderstood. Venomancer is a misunderstood fella that should find his place in this meta, and I think any ability that allows you to farm this fast is inherently broken in the game of Dota 2, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. So as a brief recap, we've got Lycan carry, we've got Venomancer support, where you actually lane for at least the first 3 minutes, weaving in and out of lanes, and Lycan is effectively a jungle bot on the hero that is ganking with his wolves. So we've got the builds, we've got the skill builds, the item builds, the talents, we've got that all laid out. The important thing is, once you go into the late game on both of these heroes, they can kind of just buy whatever items, and I personally think that's fun. If that doesn't sound fun to you, or, you know, you kind of have to think, like, what item works best for this game? It's not about the hero itself, but the game. Is it Glimmer Cape? Is it Force Staff? Is it the Lotus Orb? Is it the drums? Is it the Greaves? Or do I want to go a more offensive Blink Dagger Ags type thing? That's the idea that I think makes Venomancer as a support fun. And as Lycan, you know, you're going to do your job as a hero, but you need to be able to click people. So whatever items that allow you to prevent the opponent from being able to run away from you, and figuring out that little puzzle is also, in his own way, you know, playing for the game. You don't really need items that synergize with your abilities, just preventing people from running away. Hope you guys enjoyed this meta update. See you guys for the next one. Let me know how it goes with against these heroes in your pubs, but also playing them in your pubs. I'm curious to hear about your guys' experience. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time.